In this world, there are heroes who have abilities far beyond those of humans, and each individual has this ability. They protect the tranquility of ordinary people and the world from villains. Without such people heroes, chaos would come and the world would be mired in darkness. They are all loved, respected and very grateful for their contributions to society. But often, good guys are envied by others. People watched records of fights in the public domain. The girl and the guy admired the hero in black clothes, because he defeated the huge villain with one blow. The guy carefully looks at the picture of a person in the phone. Then he shifts his gaze to the young man who was sitting across from them, and it seems to him that Kelvin looks like the hero who fought in the video. Kelvin says that he went over and after, he vomited wildly, so he could not be at the battlefield. Hearing this, Edgar agrees. Suddenly, Kelvin receives a message and tells his friends that he will be away for a while to go to the bathroom. On the way, Kelvin watched the news, which said that the recent hero who defeated the villain had suddenly disappeared. Finally, Kelvin went into the bathroom and closed the door behind him. A moment later, the same person who was mentioned in the news appears in the toilet. Kelvin tells the hero that he risks getting himself into trouble if he is caught. The hero, taking off his helmet, says that it is very hot in it and Kelvin need not worry. The guy adds that the sudden revealing of the face is the most effective way to draw attention to the mysterious hero. Kelvin invites Lucas to reincarnate back, since he is unusual in seeing himself. Lucas used his ability in front of his eyes, began to turn into another person. When the transformation is over, Kelvin suddenly grabs Lucas by the chin, and he asks if he has retired with the girls, since his face looks too joyful. Lucas replies that he has done it so many times, to which the interlocutor nods approvingly. Kelvin tells him to wash his suit and praises Lucas for a job well done. The guy wonders in disbelief if he was a hero or just a bully. Lucas had superpowers, but, even though others have them, not everyone can become heroes. Therefore, Lucas replaces the hero, borrowing his real personality, and just plays the role of a double. 20 years ago, people with superpowers began to appear all over the world. The world plunged into chaos and lawlessness. It seemed that this was the end. The police could not maintain the former peace and order. There were people who wanted to use their abilities for personal purposes. Law enforcement agencies were unable to stop the destruction, and a lot of civilians suffered. The government urgently approved a law that was supposed to dispel the chaos. People with superpowers were divided into villains who did not obey the rules and heroes who had to resist the villains. In the headquarters of the villains, in one of the luxurious rooms, the leader of the alliance of villains was named Nathan, and he scoffed at the adopted law and did not understand what its use was. Before that, pathetic policemen came to them, in an attempt to capture the villains. Nathan didn't believe there were heroes in the present. Suddenly, a window breaks and a masked hero with a red cloak appears. The villains laughed at the image of the hero in latex and his concept. The hero, turning to Nathan, says that he will punish him, according to the first paragraph of the law on heroes and villains. Nathan replies that he is too weak and he will beat him to death. The villain pounced on the guy with the intent to kill, but the hero did not retreat, but took the fight and used his ability. The next moment he punched Nathan in the stomach. The villain flew into the wall, destroying it, and fell to the ground. He asks the guy who he is and where he came from. The guy called himself a hero named Justice. Later, this victory made Justice the most popular hero, and marked the beginning of a heroic idol. Lucas has the ability to copy, but he can't fight villains with this ability. The guy came to his home, a stream of thoughts swallowed him up. Lucas envied heroes with strong superpowers and the fact that they can live to their fullest. But, despite this, he had a way to earn. Although it is illegal, the heroes themselves come to him with requests. Ultimately, everyone is trying to earn money to survive. Lucas set himself the goal of working hard to earn a lot of money and retire at 50. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door in the middle of the late night. Lucas decided to check who was this uninvited guest. Opening the door, the most popular hero appeared before him. The man asked the guy if Lucas lives here. That man was Justice. The hero asks the guy if he becomes a double of the heroes while they are on a mission, in order to keep their identity secret. Lucas was terrified, as his activities were illegal, and he had no chance of escaping, since Justice himself was against him. The flow of his thoughts was stopped by the request of the hero to become his double. The guy in bewilderment asks why such a hero like him needs it. Justice says he is aware of Lucas's client confidentiality service, thus avoiding answering. The man brought everything he needed and opened the suitcase with documents. The guy says that there is no photo without a face on the documents. Justice removes his mask, revealing his face. Lucas asks when he should start work, to which the man replies that he needs to start tomorrow. Justice gives a business card and tells the guy to come to the specified address. Lucas wanted to ask a few more questions and asked the man to wait, but when he followed the hero, he quickly disappeared from sight. The next day, Lucas came to the indicated address. There was a huge building. The guy did not believe that he came to the exact address indicated, because it did not meet his expectations. Justice was his complete opposite, as he could protect another person with his body. The guy did not know why Justice turned to him, but he could not miss such an opportunity to earn. If he works well, he will get good connections for the future. With such thoughts, Lucas entered the room. The room was spacious and luxuriously furnished, with an armchair and 2 sofas in the center of the room. Lucas entered the room and offered to discuss the details of their collaboration. But as he got closer, he realized that Justice was dead. The guy was very scared and jumped back. He was shocked and bewildered because he did not believe that someone could kill the #1 hero. The guy decided not to rush to conclusions and decided to check. With just a light contact, he was suddenly electrocuted. He couldn't understand what it was. At the same moment, there was a strong explosion and a bright blue light lit up the room. From this explosion, the guy flew off to the side, and Justice's body fell to the floor. The last thing the young man saw was a blue light. The next moment, his hand hurt wildly, and his veins bulged. Immediately, a severe pain surged that could drive anyone crazy. The guy definitely saw the light coming from the use of his abilities. He realized that he urgently needed to leave, while no one came. Lucas did not know what had happened in the room before he arrived, but he knew that if he stayed there, he could get into trouble. He ran at full speed, frightening people walking towards him. Suddenly he ran into a man and spilled his coffee. Seeing who he stumbled upon, Lucas was surprised at the familiar face. That person turned out to be Kelvin, who didn't understand why Lucas was in the same place. Lucas was glad to see Kelvin, as he was a first-class hero. Lucas continued to hold his paralyzed hand, but when he paid attention to it, he realized that everything was already in order and it did not hurt. Kelvin said that the guy would need to clean his expensive clothes, and even if he worked all his life, he would not be able to buy such. Suddenly they heard the sound of a window breaking, but did not attach much importance to it. And while the guys were talking, an enemy attack was approaching them. They attacked Kelvin in the side and inflicted significant damage on him. Kelvin writhed in pain and did not understand what was happening, and who attacked them. The villain in green robes stood in the broken window and was disappointed with the worthlessness of the boy, who was discussed on social networks. He added that he was just a worthless worm and not worth attention. Lucas was very surprised by the sudden appearance of the villain and immediately connected his appearance with the murder of Justice. Kelvin got angry when he heard what the villain said and used his ability. He replied that he would make from that fried squid, and attacked the villain to deliver the first attack. The villain jumped up, thereby dodging the hero's attack. Wasting no time in the air, he made a counter-attack with his tentacles. But the guy, using his ability, easily repelled this attack. The next moment, he again attacked the villain, with the words that he would destroy him. But it played into the hands of the villain, and he grabbed the guy with his tentacles. The guy did not expect such a trap and tried to free himself from the grip. The villain says that the guy is stupid, since he thought that there were only 4 tentacles and he had already lost. The tentacles began to choke the hero, and people, seeing this, began to scatter in different directions, losing hope. Lucas did not believe his eyes. He did not think that the villain could easily defeat Kelvin. After a short time, the guy stopped breathing, and the villain was disappointed with the weakness and stupidity of the hero. The next moment, the villain took on ordinary people and attacked everyone indiscriminately. The villain enjoyed the way people suffer, and Lucas managed to hide behind the bar. People were shaking with fear, and they were waiting for the appearance of Justice. They knew that he would cope with this villain. But Lucas knew the terrible truth that Justice was dead. These people would die waiting for a hero who wouldn't even come to their aid. Lucas was afraid. He could not cope with such a villain. He was not even a hero, and could not compete with people with strong abilities. And in the noise and confusion, Lucas's thoughts are interrupted by the crying of a girl. Unfortunately, the villain hears her crying and pays attention to her. The girl sat on the floor and rubbed her eyes with her hands, because she was lost and she was very scared. Lucas couldn't watch the girl being killed and started yelling at her to run away quickly. The villain was amused by this, and he immediately attacked the child. The girl could only watch as the tentacle approached her at great speed. Suddenly, a picture of how his younger sister was dying appeared in Lucas's memories. He couldn't bear to watch the scene from the past reappear before his eyes. He made a dash in an attempt to protect the girl. Lucas didn't know what to do and just instinctively tried to stop the tentacle with his hand. The guy wasn't sure if he could stop the attack. At the moment of contact with the tentacle, sparks of lightning appeared. Finally, Lucas was able to stop the tentacle with his hand. The villain was very surprised that his attack was stopped. Lucas unknowingly turned into Justice, thus protecting the girl. The guy felt that a completely new power was operating in his hand. He severed one of the villain's tentacles by force. Thus, he inflicted significant damage on the villain. Justice does not know what is happening here, but he says that he will punish the villain, according to the first law. Lucas felt that his body was filled with a huge force that he could not control normally. Regardless, this was the first time he had fought a villain, and he had no absolute certainty of victory. The villain did not expect the appearance of Justice, and he says that all his attempts are useless, since his tentacles have endless regeneration. Wasting no time, the villain rushed to the attack, planning to kill Justice, like that boy of the hero. But all the attacks of the villain were very slow in the eyes of Justice, and he easily dodged each of them. He easily bypassed attacks and approached the enemy. The villain was surprised that his attacks were so ineffective. The man, approaching the attacker, waved his fist. In the next second, the villain flew off to the side from a strong blow to the face. But this was not the end. Justice grabbed the villain by the tentacle, and with great force he threw him against the wall. Lucas hadn't fully mastered the new powers yet, and didn't expect it to fly so far from a simple throw. It was an amazing power that had to be controlled and used wisely. While the hero was thinking about the situation, the villain had already risen and attacked the guy. Justice clenched his fist and was ready to finish off the villain with a final blow. But all of a sudden, his strength began to dwindle, putting him in a dangerous position. Lucas realized that this process was the same as the first time, and he couldn't control the transformation. This was very bad, as without Justice's power, he couldn't do anything. The villain approached the guy very quickly, and it seemed that time had stopped. Suddenly, the villain was attacked by a yellow flash of light. She hit him and he flew far away. The bad guy was over and Lucas was very lucky. A young girl named Ashley came to the rescue. She admired Justice, and marveled at how he timed her attack. But he didn't really have enough hearing to hear her coming, but he was glad he survived thanks to Ashley. The girl admires Justice's speed and asks how he got to the scene before everyone else. At the same time, the villain is trying to escape while the heroes are distracted by the conversation. What he didn't know was that Ashley had superpowers for long distances. She shot yellow beams from her eyes and hit the villain again. She was amazed at the stupidity and arrogance of the criminal, since he decided to attack Mr. Justice. Turning around, there was no one in front of her, and the girl wondered where the hero had gone. Ashley wanted to get an autograph, but a woman in a black hood tells her to come to her senses. She reminds the girl to take care of the wounded, to which Ashley replies that she completely forgot about it. The masked girl's name was Camila, and she was surprised that Justice was able to survive. She noticed a guy in a white sweater running out of the building. That guy was Lucas, who wanted to get out of the scene as soon as possible. Camila thoughtfully looked after the fleeing man, but did not attach much importance to him. In the evening, a light was on in Lucas's room. He shredded all the documents he received from Justice and decided to get rid of them. After getting rid of the documents, he decided to think about what to do next. If Justice was the strongest hero, then the villain who killed him was a higher rank, and Lucas blamed himself for not thinking of reincarnating before escaping. And thanks to this oversight, he heard an unfamiliar voice. The voice said that Lucas was very scrupulous, since he decided to get rid of the documents, before shredding them. The guy was frightened by this voice and he did not see anyone in the area. He kept looking with his eyes where the voice was coming from. The voice came from below, and an unfamiliar figure emerged from its shadow. The guy was very scared and fell on his back in surprise. Finally, the figure rose to its full height, and that voice belonged to Camila. She used her ability and the shadowy hands ripped open the paper bag. By manipulating the shadows, she returned the paper to its original state. Lucas, looking at this, could not believe his eyes, as he had never seen such a thing before. All the documents that he shredded were safe and sound. Camila carefully examined the documents. The next moment, she rhetorically asks Lucas if he saw that Justice is dead. She adds that she doesn't need people who know about this, as they can harm her. Camila attacked Lucas with her ability. The guy realized that the girl wants to kill him, and he has no other choice but to fight. And if Justice died because of her, then he must be serious. He knew he couldn't catch the shadows like the tentacles of that villain, but their attacks were similar. His plan was to avoid attacks and strike back at close range. Suddenly, he felt that the transformation would soon be over. He did not have time to approach Camila, as the transformation time was coming to an end. Camila realized that the guy in front of her was just an inept imitator. She adds that the guy is stupid, since he decided to imagine himself a fearless hero. Lucas was not going to die. He broke the asphalt with his last strength and raised a block of stone, and he used it as a shield against Camila's attack. The girl was surprised by the dexterity and ingenuity of the guy, and she didn't notice how the guy managed to get close enough to her that he could get her. At a critical moment, Lucas landed an undercut uppercut. Camila was even taken aback for a second by the fact that the guy turned out to be not so weak. The guy wanted to strike a second blow, and was already swinging when he suddenly realized that he could not move. The girl says that the guy did a good job, but he came to an end, as he stepped into her territory. Shadows enveloped him and lifted him into the air in an attempt to strangle him. His breathing was cut off and he could not breathe, but suddenly the girl began to think, looking at how the guy was suffocating. And the next moment she cancelled her ability. The guy didn't understand why the girl let him go. Camila asks him if he will continue doing what he was doing before. The guy doesn't understand her, but she says that he is not an ordinary person. The young girl asks if he wants to continue playing the role of Justice. The man did not know what to answer, because he did not understand what was going on in the head of this woman. She explains to him that if people find out that the number one hero has died, then people will panic. And she needs a person who can buy her a little time so she can figure out the situation. The guy jumps up and asks who she is and why she tried to kill him then. She replies that her name is Camila and she is a hero who was under the leadership of Justice. The girl says that the documents contained information about her, but it seems that the guy did not read them. After looking through the documents, the guy finds her and makes sure that her words are true. Camila says she only wanted to intimidate him into cooperating with her. The heroine adds that she will pay him $1 billion every month if the guy agrees to cooperate. Lucas was very surprised when he heard this amount, since it was much more than he had ever received. He asks her what will happen if the truth comes out and people find out that he is just a fake. The girl tells him not to worry about it, because she will support him and make sure no one finds out. Camila adds that she has no intention of forcing him, but he must understand one thing. If the villains find out that Justice is dead, then they will rise from a deep sleep and begin to create lawlessness in the city. A full-scale war between heroes and villains will begin, and many innocent people can fall under the hot hand of this war. She tells him to make the right choice, but Lucas did not know, or rather did not believe in his strength, because being the number one hero is a big responsibility. The girl understands that the guy is not able to do this and leaves, saying that the guy should not speak a lot of language. Lucas stops Camila and says that the calculated amount does not match all the risks and his importance as the number one hero. He offers to do the job for $2 billion. The girl agrees and tells him not to complain later, since he himself signed up for this. For the next week, Lucas studied documents from the archive on Justice. Since it was the most effective way to remember him, he had to know who he was trying to copy. After that, Camila drove for him and they hit the road. Lucas asks if it's wise to keep Justice's death from the heroes as well as the villains. Camila replies that they do not need to know this, and if they wanted to know, they would have known about it long ago. The guy does not understand what she means and looked at her questioningly. She replied that he would understand everything himself if he saw everything once. Their destination was a logistics center. The girl says that he was not mistaken, but it is only outside. The camera scanned Camila and the doors opened automatically. In fact, this building was the headquarters of the heroes. Before the eyes of Lucas, a huge golden statue of Justice and a large number of various heroes appeared. The atrium, that is, the headquarters, was very well camouflaged, since various things were imported and exported here. Lucas was surprised by the number of characters who were casually talking to each other. Someone ate or drank tea, and someone flew in an unknown direction on their own business. Finally they came to a huge door and stopped. Camila tells the guy that she wants to test the waters and that he should not go there with her. She adds that he should not draw attention to himself and just watch from the sidelines. There were also many heroes in the vast room, and gatherings of heroes usually took place here. The key leaders of all 4 teams of heroes have already gathered here, and they vigorously discussed the topics of concern to them. A girl named Helen was unhappy that it was their guardian group that was being blamed for the growing activity of the villains. Derek replies that it was on their territory that the most activity was noticed. He was ranked first in the superhuman team. And the man adds that activity has become less in other territories, and this shows that they do not work well. Helen replies that it's not their team's fault that their territory attracts a large number of villains. Norman, the second most powerful member of the superhumans, adds that it's not fair to allocate a large portion of the budget to those who do poorly. Arthur, who occupied the first place in strength in the Union team, answers him that he is not worthy to be called a hero, since he only thinks about money. Lucas watched the discussion through a crack in the door and was amazed that even among the heroes there are strife. Sigmund asks where Justice has gone. This guy ranked first in strength among the members of the El Condor team. Norman says that the rumors about Justice's death may be true. Helen got angry and said that he had to be careful with his expressions, otherwise she would not let him go so easily. The man says that he is not afraid of her and she is nobody in the absence of Justice. Beatrice, who was the second strongest member of Team Union, tells them to calm down. She says that they are no longer small children and should not have this circus at every meeting. But the girl is also concerned that Justice hasn't shown up for a long time and thinks that he might have been in danger. She turns to Camila and asks if she has contacted Justice. Camila replies that Justice needed to leave for a while. Paula, who was second in the El Condor team, says that Camila is lying, because due to the fact that Justice was away for a long time, she decided to visit his penthouse. And she adds that she saw a pool of blood on the floor. The girl drenched in sweat and answered somewhat uncertainly that it was illegal to enter someone else's house. But everyone present was interested to know whether what Paula had just said was true. Camila was in a difficult position, since she could not avoid interrogation if Paula saw everything. Suddenly, Justice enters the room, confirming that Paula is telling the truth. Camila didn't expect Lucas to show up as she told him not to stand out. Justice apologizes to everyone for being away for a long time. He leaned on the table and said that he could explain to them what had happened. The heroes were surprised by the sudden appearance of Justice. Lucas knew that he could not leave Camila to be torn apart by them, and then he would be discovered, so he appeared with the goal of wrapping everyone around his finger. A minute before, Lucas heard the conversation of the characters and in particular what Paula said. After her words, he noticed that the atmosphere in the hall deteriorated, and the characters began to whisper. The guy understood that no one would believe the words of Camila at such a pace. That is why he decided to appear on stage. Camila was shocked by Lucas's actions, because if he makes even the slightest mistake, he will be exposed. The guy was amazed at the number of heroes who gathered in this room. And although he was nervous, he had confidence that he could play the part and not arouse suspicion. Because he learned everything about Justice, from the length of the step, the timbre of the voice, and even the usual poses. Norman asks Justice where he's been and why there was blood in his house. Lucas decided to tell them that he had been assassinated since they already knew about the blood in his penthouse. A buzz of discussion and exclamations went through the hall, as people were surprised by what Justice had personally said about the attempt on his life. Helen was very surprised to hear Justice's words. She says he should have told her, at least to her, to which the man replies that he couldn't have told her too soon. Since the situation was not typical, he and Camila needed to conduct a thorough investigation. He adds that as soon as he finds leads, he will immediately notify them about it. He then asks Paula who gave her permission to enter his penthouse. The girl squeezed the toy tightly and replied that she was very worried. The hero sighed and said that now the investigation will be much more difficult, since those who were involved will become much more careful. Paula apologizes for ruining everyone's plans. Derek says that he can't believe this story, that someone is capable of encroaching on his life. He adds that someone should have noticed such a turmoil in the city center and his story should be checked, since Justice could set up an incident. Paula replies that Justice has no reason to lie and Derek is simply too meticulous. But suddenly he adds in a serious voice that Justice began to miss too many villains, caring only about the safety of citizens. Sigmund agrees with the girl and says that the hero should not worry about 1 or 2 lives when something more serious is at stake. So based on the above, they suspect that Justice may have made up the incident. Lucas was amazed that these characters had such a bad relationship that they wanted to cut each other's throats. Arthur reassures everyone and asks them to stop, saying that Justice has reasons why he cannot tell the whole truth. He adds that they have a more important topic for discussion and suggested that they go to it. Everyone moderated their ardor and curiosity by sighing and falling silent. Lucas was at a loss for words, but fortunately they began to discuss other matters. The meeting ended, and after that Lucas set off by car. Camila tosses him a soda and says the guy did a good job, but he says that he made the mess himself when he appeared, having made such a hasty decision. The guy replies that everyone would have guessed about the death of Justice if he had not appeared. The young man asks the girl why everyone is hostile to Justice. She replies that personal interests are divided into teams. For example, the Guardian team are natural protectors who put the safety of citizens in the first place. The El Condor team are undertakers who are trying to incinerate the villains in every possible way. Team Superhumans who consider themselves outstanding people and think that since they became heroes, they are the chosen ones. And the Union team is an alliance pursuing only its own interests. Hearing this, Lucas realized that heroes are no different from politicians. The guy also asked what kind of hero Helen is, to which Camila replies that Helen is a talented young girl who has never lost to anyone, and she is a loyal subordinate of Justice. Hearing this, Lucas said that at the moment when he mentioned the assassination attempt, outwardly Helen pretended to be surprised. But looking closely, one could see that she was not at all dumbfounded. He noticed this, since his ability is to copy others to the smallest detail, and he is very sensitive to changes in facial expressions. But for now, it was too early to jump to conclusions on that alone. Finally, they stopped abruptly and the car door opened. Camila got out of the car and said that the villains began to weaken, while the heroes, on the contrary, became stronger with the appearance of Justice. And she added that the guy will be able to see the end of this era with his own eyes, after watching the mission to exterminate the villains. She says that all teams should take part in this mission and Justice is no exception. The girl says that after the appearance of Justice, all the forces of the villains were scattered over several strongholds, and today they are cleaning up one of them. 4 teams decided to enter from different directions, and Justice should appear first in the center of the park. Lucas does not agree to immediately go fight the villains alone, as this is suicide. Camila hands him an earpiece and tells him that in order to earn 2 billion, you need to work. She reiterates that Justice is the #1 hero, and if he does not participate in the mission, then all their labors will be in vain. Lucas replies that he needs a 2 billion surcharge for such a risk to his life. Heroes and villains were in a fierce battle, everyone wanted to emerge victorious. Arriving in the city, Lucas realized that it was a one-sided battle and Camila said on the earpiece that this was due to the fact that there are more heroes than villains. Ashley suddenly approaches him, she is glad that they met again. The girl is indignant at the fact that someone dared to attack Justice and even think about it. He realizes that Ashley is a real fan, and she asks to tell her if he finds the intruder. Suddenly, the villain will attack the man, aiming at his head. The girl did not notice when this guy appeared, and did not have time to use her ability, but Justice himself dealt with the villain, simply by hitting him with his fist. Lucas didn't use even half of his power, lest he cause a premature transformation, and he hoped that this would be enough to defeat the weak villains. The next moment he leaves Ashley, telling her that he has things to do and they will talk next time. On the way, the guy met villains who wanted to kill him, but he easily defeated them and ran on at full speed. Lucas had no idea that he could copy the abilities of the dead, and if he knew about it from the very beginning, then perhaps his family would be alive. Suddenly, Camila interrupts his thoughts and tells him not to waste time fighting, otherwise he might be late. The guy realized that with a new ability he could help other defenseless people. He ran at great speed towards his destination, but suddenly a spear landed in front of him, causing him to slow down his speed. A man named Kaisar appears and says that he is honored to fight Justice. Lucas does not understand who this man is, since he saw him for the first time. Camila explains to him that this is a villain who kills heroes for fun, and so far this is too difficult an opponent for him. The guy realized that since he could not cope with him, he just had to get around him. But Kaiser grabbed him by the neck and knocked him down to the ground. And in the next moment, the villain set up his coliseum, from which it is impossible to get out. Once he was trapped, the man had no choice but to fight. Justice stabbed his opponent, but for him, any kind of injury was unavoidable while he was in the Colosseum. The villain struck with a spear and did not understand why everyone is afraid of Justice, if he is actually a weakling. The man says that in order to defeat him, the hero must make every effort. Lucas thought that if he used all his powers, then a forced transformation would immediately follow, but he suddenly realized something. Kaiser didn't know if Justice was being held back or not, but that was a good thing, because if he died, the heroes would stop advancing. But suddenly the man caught the spear with ease, stopping it a millimeter away from him. Lucas realized that a superpower is like a glass of water, and the more it is used, the less water becomes in the glass. But the size of Justice's ability is not comparable to a glass, because he had the whole sea at his disposal. The man was full of energy, but just tried to keep them longer. And from the very beginning, being Justice, it was not necessary to do this. In the room sat a worried Helen, who could not find a place for herself. The secretary asks what happened, and Helen asks her if the report came from Justice. The girl replies that the report is rather late and perhaps Kaiser is in the way. The girl got up to go, as she doubted that the villain would be able to detain Justice for so long. Helen wanted to see for herself what really happened. The villain, looking at Justice again, saw that he seemed to have become a different person. Lucas realized that each time he forcibly held back the power in his body and caused a forced transformation, and he wanted to see what would happen if he released her completely. Suddenly, as if at the snap of a finger, the battle became one-sided. Then Kaiser added a second layer of the Colosseum to increase his chances of winning. He thought that now, he could easily defeat Justice. But a man has never been so wrong in his judgments. The hero, using his strength, destroyed the spear with his bare fist. A man could just look at the approaching fist and not believe his eyes. He couldn't believe the difference in strength was so great. Lucas breathed a sigh of relief, because for him it was quite a dangerous fight. The guy turned to the noise and saw how the buildings were collapsing. It was a hero from the El Condor team that fought. The young man realized that these were not easy guys, because he heard that they were too focused on the villains that they did not notice anyone in the area. Another powerful attack of the hero, the villain reflected. And this attack, having been reflected, hit a nearby building. Lucas realized that the building was about to fall on him and he had to quickly run away. Kaiser lay nearby and the guy thought that he would die if a building fell on him. But this villain tried to kill him, and it should not matter to him whether he dies or not. In his kindness, he still raised the villain, because he could not watch him die. He hoped that when the villain opens his eyes, he will change, realize how beautiful the white light is, and follow the laws. On the way, Justice collapsed buildings one after another. He no longer had time to escape and just waited for something to fall on him. But Camila suddenly appeared and said that she would support him at any moment. The girl used her ability and threw the wreckage of the building aside. She scolds the guy for deciding to protect the villain, and says that he should be more serious. The guy replies that he could not watch a person die in front of him and he acted as a benefactor of Justice. Suddenly, the man wakes up and pushes the hero away from him. The villain takes Camila hostage and demands that all his instructions be followed. The girl tells the man that this is the result of his benefactor. A guy shouldn't neglect where Justice stands, with such an irresponsible attitude. She adds that it doesn't matter if she dies or not, but he must not miss Kaiser. Camila says that this villain is the main one here and Justice's authority will fall if he misses him. Kaiser was furious at being ignored and reminded him that he was going to kill the girl. Lucas says he won't let that happen. The next second, Camila felt a strong blow of wind. The young man realized that no matter what happens, villains remain villains. The guy says that he will personally deal with the problems that have arisen because of him. Camila sighed and said that the guy had high ambitions, but he needed to send a report. Justice reports that he has arrived at his destination. The man laughed as he said that it's not easy to earn 2 billion won. Camila knew that Kaiser, though an eccentric, but a worthy opponent. And no matter how great Justice's power is, this villain is not someone who can be defeated with yesterday's skills. The girl thought that Lucas was just a money-obsessed boy, but suddenly she realized that she could rely on him. From above, on the roof of the building, a man was watching them. That person was Helen from the Guardian team. She felt that something was wrong with Justice and in the current situation. When the job was done, Lucas breathed a sigh of relief. He was lucky that after the loss of self-control, there was no forced transformation. Camila says that she is glad that the guy can freely control Justice's power. The young man was a little embarrassed that the girl had become kinder to him. Also, during the mission, Lucas decided to see if he could also absorb another person's ability. When touched, there was a reaction, but there was an unpleasant reciprocal feeling that was reflected in my head. There was definitely a reaction, but nothing more, although for a moment he felt the absorption of power. And then, the process was forcibly terminated halfway through. The girl assumes that the guy can absorb only one ability, or the power of Justice itself is too strong. The guy says that it is too early to draw any conclusions, since there is little information, and the girl agrees. Camila says that in any case, they have worked hard and deserve a rest. This always happens after the Guardian team wins. Everyone was happy about the appearance of Justice and the fact that they won. Lucas realized that a lot of people believed in him. He took a glass of beer and drank it in one gulp. Two people stood outside the room and looked with disdain at how they were having fun. Derek started to walk away and said that they won't be happy for long. Norman asks the man if he has a plan, to which he replies that perhaps there is, but in any case, everything will change soon. The next morning, at Lucas' new penthouse, he woke up with a terrible hangover and his head was pounding with pain. And he was even ashamed to remember what the heroes did yesterday. However, when he left his room, he was struck by the luxury in which he would now live. In addition, 2 billion won were transferred to his account. Lucas is very happy that he has finally achieved unprecedented success. However, this will not end, because Justice was actually killed. On the table lay the autopsy report provided by Camila. As a result, no injuries were found, but the activation of the ability before death was revealed. The guy was very curious to know the truth of what really happened. He heard a noise and thought it was Camila coming to discuss the details of the document. But to his surprise, it was Helen. The guy hid behind an armchair and did not understand what Helen had forgotten here and why she came here as if to her home. Helen calls for Mr. Justice, as she heard his voice. She asked him what he was doing there, hiding behind a chair. Lucas turned into Justice and pretended to be training. Helen was very glad to see the man, and praised him for his perseverance and discipline. The girl heard that there had been repeated assassination attempts and this needed to be discussed, so she came. Finally, the young man understands why Helen was cold-blooded at that moment. Suddenly, the girl hugged Justice, and she said that it was too much when he did not say anything even to her. The guy could not understand what was happening and asked Helen what she was doing. The girl recalls that she asked him to call her Helenaka when they are alone. Now Lucas guessed that these two had a romantic relationship. Justice met with Helen, but nothing was said about this in the archive. So, Justice decided to hide the fact of their relationship. The girl asks why he is silent, but Lucas did not know what to answer. He decided that just calling her by her first name would be fine. Justice apologized to Helen and excused himself by saying that he forgot due to the fact that he rarely calls her that in public. The girl, hearing this, was at first serious, but then smiled. Helen says that she felt hurt because he does not change his attitude towards her, even in private. She adds that it made her feel uncomfortable. In the next moment, the girl attacked the guy with lightning speed with her sword. The girl went cold and said that at first she even believed that he really was Justice. Lucas was very surprised, because a second ago he almost lost his life. Helen says she will cut off his hands before asking questions. The girl, along with Justice, is a member of the Guardian team and holds the position of Deputy Commander. And she was born with an ability, very powerful. This ability was called Speedster, that is, ultra-high acceleration. The whole interior of the house was cut very precisely and accurately. The guy realized that the girl had perfected the movements to perfection. Helen attacked again, and Lucas activated the ability, asking her to wait. The girl is a little surprised that the guy could even copy Justice's ability. But he adds that they are wasting their strength and energy. The guy understands that he will not be able to continue in the same spirit and he needs to come up with something. Therefore, he decided that he needed to attack back and use the ability. Helen now understands how he defeated Kaiser, and she says that it was only the result of an inept waste of strength. However, the same tricks will not work on her. The girl made a series of attacks with lightning speed and caused significant damage to Justice's body. Helen says that he will never defeat her if he continues to fight like this, and she will cut him in the most ruthless way with resistance, but if he falls on his face, then the pain will end. The guy does not agree to her terms, and the girl rushes to the attack. She stabs him in the chest with her sword, and blood rushes from the wound. Lucas says that he couldn't land a single hit on the girl because of her speed, but now, she won't be able to move as he grabbed her arm. Even though the guy got hit in the head, he couldn't even knock it out. Lucas was very surprised, since he was counting every newton of his strength to send the girl to sleep. The man had a bad feeling, so he decided that he needed to deliver another series of blows before it was too late. In an instant, the girl in front of him vanished from sight. Helen asks the guy to stop resisting, as he is delaying the inevitable. She will deprive him of his arms anyway. The girl used her ultimate ability, destruction of the enemy of humanity, 1,000 blows. Lucas was under pressure, where every second he received a new blow from the sword. And at this rate, it really could be shredded into small pieces. Suddenly, a new ability appeared in their intense fight. Helen realizes that this ability is familiar to her. It was Camila. She said that she knew that Helen was very sensitive towards Justice, but did not think that she would guess so quickly. The girl understands that Camila was also involved in this case and asks her to explain everything. Then she decided not to delay, but to say directly that Mr. Justice had been killed. Helen is horrified to realize that Justice has been murdered, and they have staged this dress-up circus so as not to shock the others. Camila says they had no choice but to act quickly so that this death doesn't cause more problems. The girl replies that it was too noticeable. Although the guy has the abilities of Justice, he absolutely does not know how to use them. Camila says that she understands everything, but now it is much more important to buy as much time as possible. Lucas agrees because in order to investigate Justice's death, they needed to clean up the mess. The girl says it's absurd and the killer could come back to kill them both. The guy says it's unlikely that the killer will return, as they are the only ones who know of Justice's death. The girls do not understand what he is talking about, and ask why he decided so. Because yesterday there was a complete mass murder of villains, but so far there has been no reaction to this. Helen asks that although it is not known who the killer is, does he think that there was a failure in his murder? The guy says it's unlikely, to which the girl just sighed. The girl decided to leave to take a walk and put her thoughts in order. Helen was the only one who followed Justice faithfully, and now she must have a mess in her head. And now she has become the only link in the Guardian team. Since before Justice followed the routine within the team, but now, in his absence, the heroes can scatter, leaving Helen alone. Camila is indignant, because such people are not worthy of being called heroes, and they were no different from a herd of sheep that must be led. That is why they must carry out their plan at any cost, so that the heroes do not leave their posts and hope burns in the hearts of people. Lucas finally understood why Camila got involved in this adventure. Suddenly, the girl received a message and told the guy to get ready for the second mission. They came to the dining room and the guy could not start the meal, because everyone was looking at him. Everyone was surprised by his appearance and wondered why he was here. The man does not understand what he needs to do, to which the girl replies that everything has already been done. She explains that there was an assassination attempt on him recently, and he must show everyone that he is all right. The guy understood, but it was hard for him to pretend that he was just eating in front of everyone. The girl tells him to get used to it, but in the future this will be less. Today is a special day when an initiation takes place among the heroes. Camila pointed to the heroes going to the biggest event in Artium. In this event, the heroes decide which of the 4 teams they can join, and it's like an open day at universities. Justice understood the magnitude of this event and asked what he should do. Camila replies that they have to go, and she will tell everything along the way. After a while they came to a large stadium. Lucas was so surprised that he involuntarily made a sound of admiration. The girl tells him to be calm, otherwise someone might think that Justice was scared. Camila says that he doesn't have to do anything, answering the question that has been tormenting him. She adds that the strongest hero doesn't need to prove their strength in the arena. He just has to sit quietly and watch what is happening. Looking at the number of people who were on the ranks of the respective teams, one could draw a conclusion. The Guardian has lost its value compared to the Union and the superhumans. Each member of the team has tremendous power, and it is not surprising that they want to use it for their own purposes. Suddenly they saw that Helen had come to them. She sat down next to him and said that she just decided to play along with them, but she was still not on their side. Lucas does not understand why such hostility, because it was not he who killed Justice. Finally, the performance began and two heroes entered the arena. The match between the Guardian and the superhumans began. As soon as the command was given, the heroes entered the fray. Adam activated the ability and attacked Jack in the stomach. Jack was thrown back by the force of the impact, and he praised the enemy for his agility and speed of movement. The next moment the men continued the battle. Lucas did not understand why the heroes fight, to which Camila replied that this was some kind of PR for their team to attract people. Justice says that then it's just a friendly match to show his strength, to which the girls said that these matches can hardly be called friendly. In the arena, meanwhile, Adam knocked Jack to the ground and broke his hand. Lucas couldn't bear to watch and stood up, telling them to wait. But Camila stops him, reminding him that she told him not to do anything. Although there is bullying, these fights are fierce battles for power between the teams. So basically he's not doing anything illegal, and even Justice has no right to interfere. Adam asks why Jack does not give up. Is he really waiting for an injury to both hands? But then he apologizes, because he realized that he cannot give up while his hand is chained to the floor. Adam says that he will probably start breaking his arms, but suddenly a hand stops him. The girls were surprised and could not understand what this boy was doing. Lucas entered the arena because he remembered his younger sister, who admired the heroes. She believed that it was only thanks to heroes that they could live safely and peacefully, and he couldn't watch Adam beat up a hero like himself with a smirk. Justice says he should be ashamed of his behavior. Adam does not understand what he says and answers that he has no right to interfere. The guy asks what the number one hero will do if he doesn't listen to him. Adam decided to attack Justice with his ability, because she could control gravity and increase magical power. He was about to blow up the unfortunate hero who grabbed his hand so casually, but Justice simply squeezed his hand, dealing damage and preventing him from activating the ability. The man says that Adam could have just let Jack surrender and not hurt him. Derek suddenly appears and saves a hero from his team from Justice. Derek activates his ability and pushes Justice back. He says that the number one hero needs to fight someone of his level. The newcomers were surprised that at the very beginning they would be able to see the fight of the legends. Helen got up from her seat and wanted to stop the fight in any way. Camila also understood that Lucas could hardly control Justice's power. Given the way he used power before, he had no chance of winning against Derek. Justice says that they don't need to fight and they can resolve everything peacefully. But the man does not agree, as his authority will suffer if he retreats now. Lucas realized that there was nowhere to go, and he went on the attack, activating the ability. Derek blocked his shot and said that Justice forgot something. The guy felt the strength leave his body, and could not understand what was happening. Derek activated his ability and said it was now his turn to strike. Justice managed to block the blow with his hands, but he injured his hand in the process. All the attacks he made on the man were useless, and he just fought back and fought back. The battle was one-sided. Lucas guessed that Derek could project his own attack. The man said that Justice was losing his grip and had become somehow weak. The guy just took one blow after another. The watching heroes could not understand what was happening and why Justice allowed himself to be beaten. Derek's ability is the absorption of other people's powers. He absorbs any power of the enemy. Then he attacks with it, but with a multiplied coefficient, adding his own to someone else's strength. No matter how strong the attack, it will only harm its owner. Camila knew that if this continued, then Justice would lose in disgrace due to a funny one-sided fight. Derek asked the guy why he wasn't doing anything. He questioned that standing before him was the number one hero, the pride of the Guardian team. Lucas understood that if this continued further, then everyone might suspect something, and he turned off his brain in vain, relying on feelings. If he had just followed Camila's instructions, he would have easily received 2 billion won and wouldn't be in this situation. The man asks how long he's going to be a punching bag. However, he couldn't bear to see the false hero acting completely unheroic. At the moment of the clash, Lucas had an idea on how to defeat Derek. The man finally saw that Justice had begun to fight and told him that if he tried hard, they might have a draw. But suddenly he saw Justice coming towards him. Lucas knew he was no match for the real Justice. But still, in any situation there is a way out, and there was also a way to win. And that way was to channel a flow of magic that Derek wouldn't be able to absorb. The arena began to collapse from a sharp surge of the enormous strength of the two men. A very strong shock wave rose, which covered all the spectators. Camila was surprised that the guy started to get something. But if everything is left as it is, then the atrium will disintegrate into atoms. Suddenly the men felt strong pressure from outside. They stopped fighting, and they were drawn to the ground. Lucas didn't understand why his body suddenly felt so heavy. The person who intervened was Arthur. He told them to stop and look around. Lucas knew this guy. He was from the Union team. Arthur sighed and cancelled his ability, telling them to stop being childish and not do things like that again in places like this. Derek walked back to his seat in annoyance. Jack bowed to Justice and thanked him for saving him. People were surprised by the fight and everyone admired Justice. They said that if he had not been stopped, then Derek would have suffered greatly. Lucas breathed a sigh of relief and was glad that everything worked out. The next day at Justice's penthouse, Helen brought a list of heroes who joined the 4 teams. Camila says that thanks to Lucas's antics, the situation in the atrium has improved, but the Guardian is still in last place in terms of the number of newcomers. The guy asks if there is really such a big difference between the teams. Helen replies that not really, and although their hero lost, it didn't matter much. Because in the current situation, where the villains are greatly weakened, there is still no one who would consciously want to join the Guardian. And at this rate, all power will be concentrated in the hands of the already well-known team of Overmen. Lucas asks what is the problem if they have a lot of powers. Camila reminds him that although they have great power, they behave no better than the villains. Then the guy thoughtfully asks why they don't create their own alliance. The girl says that even there is no one to take into the alliance, since El Condor is too radical, the Supermen are immediately excluded and only the Union team remains. In conclusion, there was the option of inviting only them if they themselves were not the initiators. Lucas asks the girls what's so hard about it. He adds that it would be hard to transform into 2 people at once. The girls don't understand what he's getting at. The next moment he shows them the phone and says he will do it, but only for the salary of the number 1 hero. In the evening, a party was held on the roof of the hotel with a large number of people. People rested and had fun, someone swam, and someone danced. Lucas asks why they came to such a place late at night. She replies that William is here, who was ranked 3rd among the members of the Union team. Unlike other teams in the Union team, rank does not depend on the strength of the hero, but on his popularity. Although he can hardly be called a hero, he has many connections thanks to the parties he throws. And today there should be a vote in which William will take part and Lucas needs to falsify its result. Camila doubts that the guy will succeed and asks what he plans to do. The guy says that this is not one of those cases that is worthy of praise, and looking at a girl in a bathing suit, one idea already came to him. Finally, William showed up at the party and everyone was happy to see him. William turns to the people and says that today is an amazing party, and he also reminded them that there is no law that would oblige them to do their daily routine to save people. He offers to forget about all the worries, and have fun until the morning. Thomas says that William will have enough alcohol for today, to which he replies that he has not even started. Looking at the man, he asks why he is dressed this way. The guy replies that it is fitting for him to dress like this, because he is his servant. William says that this is just a waste of a beautiful face and complains that he was assigned such a boring boy. Suddenly, a girl bumps into him and pours a drink on his clothes. William is outraged because his clothes are expensive and tells the girl to look under her feet. Leslie says that she didn't notice the guy because she drank too much. She offers to help him clean his clothes, to which William replies that there is nothing to worry about, and this happens. To which the girl does not agree and says that she would very much like to clean this stain in a secluded place. The guy says that since she really wants it, there's nothing to be done. He leaves Thomas and tells him to keep order in his absence. The guy enters the password and the door to his suite opens. But before William had time to ask anything, Leslie used the ability. And the next moment she knocked him out with one blow. Naturally, it was Lucas who turned into a girl to deceive William. Immediately, the guy began to look for a tablet on which the conference was supposed to take place. When he found it, the tablet had retinal and fingerprint recognition, although you can't tell from William, but he was pretty careful. But he was lucky that there was no password, so he reincarnated as William and easily unlocked the tablet. Arthur was surprised that William showed up so early for the conference. The man immediately got down to business and reminded them that at this meeting they should decide whether to cooperate with the Guardian team. Everything will be decided by the vote of each. Arthur had 1,479 votes, Beatrice had 1,326, and William had 985. Lucas was surprised by how everything was organized in the Union team. It was not like a vote, but like an entertainment show. The guy understood that William's voice could affect the result. Everyone voted quickly and Arthur was a little surprised. Afterwards he said that since they had unanimously made a decision, they would act in accordance with it. Lucas hung up from the conference and breathed a sigh of relief. Outside, Camila was waiting for him and she asked how everything went. To which the guy replies that this is a success, and he has done work for 2 billion. In his room, William woke up and agreed that he had drunk a little. Thomas asks if the man remembers anything for sure. William says that this is true, since the closeness with such a beauty must have been incredible, and he even managed to take part in the conference. He says that as soon as he opened the tablet, he noticed that he had already cast his vote. William asks who the girl was and if Thomas has her contact. Thomas guessed something and asks William for a list of all the guests who were present yesterday. The next morning, Lucas decided to completely review his wardrobe, as he needed to fully match Justice's style and preferences. Looking into the closet, he saw the complete opposite. All his things did not fit. Camilla added that it is necessary to change not only appearance, but also all habits, manner of communication, and behavior. Helen looked at all this with a dissatisfied expression on her face. It seems she still doesn't like this idea of a substitution. Lucas, throwing all the things out of the closet, remembered that now he has become incredibly rich and can buy anything. Suddenly he notices a photo in a frame. Having picked up the photo, the main character suddenly changes his face, falls to his knees and carefully examines everything that is depicted on it. The photograph shows his entire happy and carefree family resting at that moment. I remember they had just left the cinema. Lucas completely forgot that he hid it in the closet in order to remember less what happened that day. Longing for his family is visible in his eyes. Thinking about how wonderful it would be if his little sister saw him transform into Justice, she would be delighted. Just thinking that you definitely need to take the photo with you, the frame breaks and it flies straight under the bed. Dissatisfied with his clumsiness, Lucas tries to lift the bed and, not calculating his new enormous strength, throws the bed like a feather. There is a look of fear and surprise on his face at how he managed to pull this off. A little later, in the office, the main character and Camila discuss what happened at home. Lucas says that the surge of strength began abruptly this morning and he excitedly says that he doesn't know what's happening to him, taking the pen and breaking it as soon as he touched it. Camila suggests that he somehow became more sensitive to Justice's abilities and his superpower began to awaken. With a stupid expression on his face, Lucas asks how this is possible. He can only copy his appearance and gain a little power from it. Then his interlocutor began to explain that, like human muscles, the more often he uses his superpowers, the stronger he will become, and now it's time to get to work. In the blink of an eye, the main character turns into Justice. It's time for a conference in which the main superheroes participate. Arthur apologizes for forcing everyone to get together and get in touch so suddenly. The fact is that he urgently needs to go on a business trip. Norman, wanting to quickly get to the point, mockingly says that now they have only one main topic on the agenda. This is a more productive distribution of our forces. The head of the team says that everything was correctly noted. The conversation will be about this. El Condor decided to establish an alliance with the Guardian team. Hearing his statement, Norman is angrily indignant at why everything was suddenly decided so quickly and how they came to this. As if not noticing his attacks, Arthur continues, all decisions depend on the results of the vote and, as it turned out, the majority believes that now more than ever it is necessary to concentrate on capturing the remaining villains. Getting even more angry, Norman says that this is all nonsense and he doesn't like this idea. Suddenly Sigmund, squeezing the bandit's head, asks why he should concentrate on catching the villains in words. He sharply began to express his dissatisfaction, whether there were any good reasons for this. Jumping at this question, Norman replies that as a result of the last mission, the main base of the villains was destroyed. Then Justice says to stop arguing, this is a waste of time. His thoughts regarding this situation are completely different, and clearing the main camp does not provide any guarantee of complete deliverance from the enemy. Helen, in complete calm, adds that she completely agrees with the opinion of the head. With the same displeasure on his face, Norman wants to object, but his objections are immediately stopped by Derek. And in a languid voice he says that the decision was unanimous. How can one object to the opinion of the entire team? The complete destruction of the villains will bring peace and tranquility. This time he supports Guardian's intentions. Surprised by himself, Lucas in Justice's body thinks about how everything came to this skirmish between the heroes. The end of the negotiations is approaching. Returning to Lucas's rented apartment, Camila looks in surprise at the hole in the ceiling that appeared after an unsuccessful prank. She asks how he will justify himself to the landlady, and whether he has any thoughts on this matter. While throwing out the trash, the main character replies that he will just give her a wad of money, thinking that this will solve the problem, but the important thing is that from the day he first approached him, some unknown shit began to happen to him. Supplementing, he asks why Camila is helping him figure all this out. They have a normal market relationship, he works in exchange for money, why is she worried about him? In response, Camila says that it is in her interests that everything be in order, because as long as Justice is alive, all the heroes will behave as they should in reality. But there is another reason. This reason is a little personal. Realizing that she said too much, she hurriedly puts on her hood and moves towards the exit. Thinking that he had said something unnecessary, Lucas frowned, but did not find out what she meant, and it was better for him not to ask about it in the near future. Coming out onto the terrace, they notice with caution that the same guard who was at the party with William is standing there. Camila recognizes him and says that this is Thomas from the Union team, perplexed that he forgot here. Smiling as if nothing had happened, Thomas notices how unexpected it is to cross paths with them in such a place. Camila reasons that he clearly came for a reason and why she is here. Turning sharply and staring at Lucas, Thomas suddenly declares that he knows about his copying abilities. Lucas freezes in fear. Trying to defuse the situation, with a smile on his face, he notes that this is a rather amusing ability and he likes it. Then in an instant the smile on his face disappears and he asks why he came to the party yesterday. He wasn't invited. Sensing something was wrong, Lucas shyly refuses and says that he doesn't understand what they're talking about. Yesterday he spent the whole evening doing household chores. Interrupting the blatant lie, Thomas claims that it will not be possible to evade the answer, since all the surveillance cameras have been viewed and indicate the opposite. One of the cameras clearly shows that he has reincarnated as a girl. After which he did everything that was planned, returned to his previous appearance and calmly left the hotel. Then Lucas realized that he had missed one camera and began to declare that everything was not as he thought. He just got drunk and accidentally stumbled upon William, and he began to seduce him. Assuming that this was just an incredible coincidence, Thomas said, "It means I was just being paranoid." Suddenly his face became terrifying and he asked a rhetorical question as to how Lucas would explain his transformation into Justice. Both froze from fear and fear of being declassified, and Thomas continued, "He cannot be sure, but there is an assumption." Before he can finish speaking, his hand pulls out a tooth with lightning speed, blood pours out of his mouth, but there is not a drop of pain on his face. "I don't understand what's happening." Jumping back, no one understands what's happening, why all this is happening. Then their guest, without losing his advantage, with a slight movement of his fingers launches his tooth with furious force. Flying over them, it turns into a huge dome. Everyone stands in a stupor from fear and cannot do anything. The next moment, the dome covers Camila, which frightens the main character. He is confused. At this moment, a bone resembling a sharp blade appears from Thomas's hands and he demands to return to the conversation. He is ready to achieve the truth even at the cost of his life. Not understanding the essence of what is happening, Lucas questioningly shouts for him to stop and why he needs it. Examining his hand, from which a bone blade is visible, Thomas calmly says that, as mentioned earlier, he wants to check something. Lately, he had begun to notice significant changes in Justice's behavior, even considering the assassination attempt that everyone had been told about. A comparison of facts gives two unobvious results. He suggests that maybe Camila, Justice's favorite student, has among her acquaintances a person who knows how to copy someone else's appearance, and this person is now standing in front of him. Having just finished speaking, Thomas rushes at Lucas with incredible speed and casually wounds his neck with his weapon. The wound is not deep, but still causes discomfort. This action replaces fear with anger and determination. Then, with rage in his eyes, the main character screams in bewilderment why the heroes, even in such a situation, cannot avoid disunity. In response to this, Thomas says that even a child with primitive thinking could expose his evil intentions, and he is waiting for an explanation. Lucas's eyes filled with anger, sparks appeared around his body, lightning began to flow from his hands, and he said that he was tired of all this. Seeing Justice's very abilities, Thomas didn't understand how he could do it. Apparently he didn't foresee this and didn't think that everything had gone so far. Then he decides to achieve the truth in a different way. The same blade appears from the second hand, and an ominous atmosphere reigns around. Then the thought appears in Lucas's head that if he tells the truth, he will lose all his money. And what's even worse, perhaps it was this scoundrel with blades who killed Justice. But this no longer mattered. The fists began to fill with strength that was difficult even to restrain. He rushes at his opponent, but with a sharp and precise movement he throws Lucas' hand away and redirects the powerful blow to the side. He also noted that he does not know how to control such enormous power, but it's a pity that if he had the power of Justice, he would have controlled it much better. Smiling, the main character says that he sees the frustration on his face and that he is probably very upset that he does not have such power. In response to this, Thomas furiously declares that he is too irresponsible about everything and disposes of her only to satisfy his desires, after which he rushes forward. Having almost pierced the protagonist's skull with a quick lunge, Thomas puts him on his shoulder blades, but Lucas manages to stop the blade at the last moment. The forces are clearly not equal. A little more and everything will end in tears. In an instant, Lucas throws his opponent aside and grabs him tightly by the arms, not allowing him to even move. Thomas suddenly notices and says that he seems to be fighting at full strength, but still cannot wake up. Not understanding what he is interpreting, the guy thinks about what it means to awaken and why it was said. He does not know that thanks to awakening, he can improve his performance and become much stronger, but the hero's strength increases based on his most sincere motives. Only there he can shine brighter than others. Thomas, gritting his teeth, yells that it's obvious how mediocrely he wastes the gifted power, without even knowing about the awakening. There is still a lot of misunderstanding in Lucas's eyes. Looking straight into the eyes, Thomas continues, is it really true that holding the opponent's hands, in the boy's opinion, will be enough to win? After which he says that he can distribute force to any part of his body. At this moment huge tusks emerge from his elbows, from which Lucas miraculously dodges. After which he rushes with all his might at the offender, because he remembers that Camilla is still in this cocoon and no one knows what's wrong with her. Everything needs to be resolved as quickly as possible. Out of surprise, Thomas does not understand what is happening, loses his mind for a second and comes to his senses again. At that moment he receives a blow. From the uncalculated force of the blow, Lucas' knee seems to be covered in fire, and he writhes in pain. Then the question follows, in which part of the body does a person have the strongest bone? But Lucas doesn't seem to hear him, standing on one knee and bursting with pain. Then Thomas himself, answering his own question, says that the answer is outrageously simple. In the skull, his face is covered with a bone mask. He irritates Lucas terribly, but he admits he is right in his forgetfulness. Well, this will be remembered forever. Despite all this, Thomas understands and thinks to himself that during the entire fight he could not land a single blow. What is hidden in this boy? Having risen, the main character pulls himself together, takes a deep breath and decides to put an end to this confrontation. Before, he was only concerned about conspiracy. He wanted to quickly finish everything that he was dragged into. However, from the moment he was unable to save his family, Lucas constantly hated himself for not being strong enough to protect the people he loved. Thinking about this, the boy does not notice how the enemy got close to him and said that he would not be able to scratch him and it was time to surrender. Thomas was right. Even with Justice's power, which still needed to be mastered, there was still little chance, but despite this there was still hope. Charging his fist to full power, everything around him pale in comparison with this power, Lucas strikes. The blow flies past Thomas and he, pointing his blade at the back of his opponent's head, exclaims with mockery that he warned them that their strengths were incomparable. Turning around, with fire in his eyes and a wide smile, the guy reports that he was not aiming at him at all. A broken koken can be seen behind him. Camilla is freed. In a matter of seconds, Thomas's entire body is enveloped by shadow tentacles, immobilizing him, not giving him a chance to come to his senses. Camilla thanks for the release and is going to ask the ill-wisher a couple of questions, but before that she is going to beat the crap out of him. It seems he can't free himself. Now he can only wait for his fate. Imprisonment in a bone cocoon has madly angered the mistress of the shadows. The madness in her eyes is terrifying. Thomas seems at a loss and doesn't know what to expect next. The shadows squeeze his body more and more. But the whole situation suddenly turns upside down and a bone suddenly appears from the forearm, which easily cuts the shackles. The intruder says that he already mentioned how his abilities work. Bones can appear from any part of his body, even if he himself is immobilized. Without thinking twice, Camilla releases a stream of several shadows to prevent the enemy from being released. But he suddenly puts a block from a pile of bone tissue and easily cuts all the obstacles in his way. It seems unstoppable. Breaking the sharpest blade from his body, Thomas launches it, hoping to wound or at least confuse his attacker. The blade almost hits Camilla right in the head, easily digging into the wall. She is not discouraged. It seems a little more and everything would have ended fatally. Taking advantage of the confusion and distraction of his opponent, Thomas strikes the next blow. It seems this swing will definitely hit the target. It turns out that everything is not so simple. Being in amazing shape and having a quick reaction, Camilla, using a shadow portal, ends up behind the enemy. Watching this mind-blowing fight, Lucas stands with his eyes bulging. The level of fighters in this battle is quite high. This guy fights on par with Justice's own student. Having assessed the situation, Thomas understands that his opponent is quickly closing the distance and attacking with shadows from a safe distance, then he can do the same. Having pulled out another tooth, with a sharp movement, imperceptible to the common man, as if a live cartridge were being torn out of his hands, a bone projectile was being torn out. This time it is divided in two and several traps are already flying from above. It will not be easy to dodge such a trap. Saying that he won't be able to pull off the same sneaky trick twice, Camilla sharpens her day and cuts off the enemy's attack. At this moment, she notices that Thomas has disappeared from sight. Where did he go in such a short period of time? Justice's students gaze darts from side to side, trying to find the intruder. Attempts are in vain. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a threat appears from above, but the shadows can predict the enemy's movements and instinctively protect their mistress. She jumps back quickly and fires dark purple streaks at Thomas's landing spot. Perhaps this is the end. Despite the accurate hit, he manages to precisely build a bone shield on his chest, which easily repels the attack. Crouching, collecting all the shadows in the area, which sent tremors throughout the building, Camilla says that he managed to make her fight seriously. With a sharp movement of both hands, a cloud of ominous energy rises up, obeying the movements of the mistress. Her gaze has become even more terrifying. Huge shadows appear over Thomas's head in the form of a mouth of waves. Terrifying. This is one of the strongest abilities, called a shadow tsunami. If it collapses on him, it will be hard. This entire incredible cloud of energy covers a huge area of the building. A little more and everything will collapse. The ability slightly hurts the enemy, but he is miraculously saved thanks to the bone armor. And at the same moment he appears behind Camilla. With the last of his strength, Thomas concentrates all his strength in his hand, trying to deliver the final blow. Lucas, rushing to help, fearing for his mentor, tries to warn her, shouting her name. Just before the end of the attack, Justice's student, with a carefree expression on her face, reports a shadow behind her that will pierce Thomas at any moment. After this news, he freezes. In a commanding tone, Camilla says that the time has come to stop. It is clearly clear that from the very beginning the stranger did not try to kill anyone. Lucas can't understand what's going on here at all, because the enemy almost killed them a couple of times. In fact, it would not have been difficult for Thomas to deprive them of the ability to breathe with just one touch, but this did not happen. What goals he actually pursues. Confirming everything that has been said, the guy says that given the circumstances, the case of killing Justice, which was mentioned at the meeting, was not at all unsuccessful. Justice is indeed dead. Taking a flash card out of his pocket, he claims that there is footage of Lucas' transformation into the leader of all heroes. He will have many difficulties with this material. If this is revealed, then everyone will consider the copy hero a murderer and then he will immediately come to an end. Having finished the phrase, Thomas breaks the flash drive with a snap of his fingers. In amazement, Lucas does not understand why he did this, unless his goal is blackmail. Then the guy with a charming smile declares that he has no reason to oppose them, their interests are similar, although everything looks different. Camila asks what he means, to which Thomas replies that although he was formerly a member of Team Union, he is now a spy for Team El Condor. From this news, Lucas and Camila freeze in place, unable to utter a word. Then Thomas continues, saying that at the moment Guardian and El Condor are much inferior in strength to the superhuman team. As soon as the epidemic of villains faded into the background, everyone began to care only about their own interests, to earn more and become richer. Therefore, Thomas was given the task of infiltrating Union and causing chaos within the team, but he also needs allies with whose help he can carry out his job smoothly. Lucas seems to begin to understand the whole essence of the matter, after which he tries to make sure what exactly he means. Then the new guest says that everything is right, the three of them will join Union and organize a judgment day there. Camila still didn't trust Thomas and asked how they knew that the data on the flash drive was in a single version and perhaps there was a copy somewhere. In response to this, he replies that he really likes Lucas's skills, they can be used in many places, but regarding distrust, he will not persuade them, and if they do not agree, they will become competitors and will definitely lose. Surprised by the guy's incredible self-confidence, the student and Justice's replacement did not understand how to respond. Then, angry, Lucas objected that it was inappropriate to say this now, even though he was simply playing the role of Justice. The main goal remains to find those who killed him. Having entered into an alliance, Thomas will have to help them in this matter. The guy with silver hair replied that he understood everything perfectly and agreed, because then he might have a chance to personally kill the vile killer Justice, and that sounds cool. The main character then thought that if Thomas was on the El Condor team, he madly hated the villains and this could mean that he would be quite suitable for them as an ally. Tired of waiting for an answer, he forces him to quickly decide whether they are for him or against him. Camila and Lucas looked at each other. It seems that the girl likes the mood of her comrade in arms and leaves the right to make a decision to him, but first you need to hear what Thomas has in mind. The guest, looking at the coordinated work of this couple when choosing a solution, simply looks at them with a smile. They seem to agree. A little later, a guard at the Union team's combat headquarters carefully examines the protagonist's ID, pronouncing his name and comparing the photo on the document and in life. Seeing that the situation is tense, Lucas says that he is a newbie and just recently joined the team, then they let him through. Exhaling with relief, he remembers that he had been sitting on this certificate all night. His hand was very tired from painstaking work. He had to try. Definitely, the feeling of the heroes in the Union team is different from the Guardian. Everyone is so relaxed, there is no distinctive dress code, since at their core they only pursue their own goals. Seeing a familiar figure, Lucas seems to freeze, unable to look away. Camila appears in front of him in a non-standard outfit for herself. She is wearing a fitted blouse and jeans, and besides, the hood that constantly covers her face has disappeared. She uttered only one phrase, having learned what he was staring at. Then the main character answers too directly that it's just now possible to say for sure that Camila is charming. Angry and a little embarrassed, she shouts that she doesn't even want to hear such phrases anymore. In fact, she is unusual in receiving compliments, since she is usually in a completely covered outfit. Pushing Lucas with her shoulder, the enraged student of Justice quickly walked forward, calling her partner, but before that he gritted his teeth and did not say too much. In front of them, some popular personality was taking pictures with fans with a happy expression on his face. Lucas recognized her and said that it was Evie, having heard that she also debuted as a hero and immediately decided to become a newcomer to the Union team. Evie was a popular food blogger, very popular. Her live broadcasts attract hundreds of thousands of viewers. Camilla assumes that most of the heroes who join Team Union do so for commercial purposes. Most likely she is here only to get a good PR. Interrupting the conversation, the always smiling Thomas calls out to them, waves his hand and is glad that they have finally met. Looking at him, Camila claims that the plan actually doesn't look that bad, even though it was this strange smiling guy who came up with it. By quickly raising your popularity in the Union team, you can exercise your right to vote. Neither career nor abilities are important, it all depends on how much the hero attracts public attention. Lucas asks his partner whether she won't arouse suspicion, having just yesterday been part of the Guardian team. Even despite this, how she can gain popularity in Union. Having overheard the conversation and coming closer, Thomas confidently declares that there is a way and will soon tell about it. A little later, our heroes find themselves at a lecture about abilities. The teacher says that any ability is based on the so-called manifestation. Depending on the manifestation, the same ability can be used in different ways, that is, manifest differently, giving different abilities. Continuing the lecture, the teacher says that in rare cases it happens that the manifestation proceeds a little differently than expected. Usually this happens when the abilities are first awakened. And almost certainly all this will lead to the person losing control of himself, falling into a rage and not being aware of his actions. An example is shown in the photo. In this state, a person almost completely loses his mind and acquires threatening incredible strength, and his brain begins to function only on reflexes. Adding to what has been said, the teacher states that such people periodically become targets of the hero's hunts, and if anyone present is interested in such a hunt, they can receive a similar task. The vast majority of the educational audience did not understand who might be interested in this, because it is incredibly dangerous and not worth such effort. The teacher, as he thought, did not expect anyone interested among the newcomers, although this is understandable, because this is not the Guardian or El Condor team. He continues the lecture. But suddenly, quite unexpectedly, a shout is heard from the audience and Lucas's raised hand is visible. He says that their group wants to take part in this. Surprised, the teacher with an eye patch cannot remember the last time one of the new students agreed to this kind of task. Everyone around Lucas began to whisper and chuckle. The bravest ones even asked what was wrong with him and whether his team agreed with this decision. Looking at Thomas, he found out if he had made a mistake. In response, the guy said that everything was fine, but it would be difficult for a beginner, but with the power of justice it would be no more difficult than defeating a child. A little later, Camila brings the main character to the monastery and Justice's favorite training room. The room looks quite spacious, even too spacious. At the entrance, the girl asks why he asked to bring him here, what he had in mind. Then Lucas's expression suddenly became serious. He remembered the battle with Kaisar and said that it was a matter of strength. In the battle with Kaisar everything worked out by itself, because Justice's powers are colossal. And in the confrontation with Derek in the arena, he would not have managed if the fight had not been interrupted. Continuing, he added that Helen was right. Until that moment he had only thought about profit and money, but now his goals are something more. A memory appeared in my head from his birthday, when the whole family was gathered. They were happy and carefree. That day, Lucas decided to please his little beloved sister, knowing that she desperately wanted to see a hero named Nolan. The girl really loved this hero very much and always followed his achievements. Her eyes were wide open. She impatiently waited for a miracle. A second later, the same hero Nolan appears before her eyes. Lucas specially trained for weeks so that everything would go perfectly. My sister was overwhelmed with joy and admiration. Her dream came true thanks to her brother, whom she loved madly. The wonderful moment is suddenly interrupted by a certain entity that appears behind. At one moment the table where the parents were sitting flies up into the air. It seems they died on the spot. The girl cried from fear and clung to her brother. Lucas himself was also scared and dumbfounded. Not understanding what was happening, he stared at the villain. A huge pile of purple muscles with 4 eyes and a twisted mouth looked at them and was glad that he had finally found a hero to compete with. Lucas had never seen villains so close. In that moment it was as if he was frozen to the ground and could not move. But the thought that there is a sister nearby who needs to be protected brings him to his senses. The guy instantly stands in front of her and covers her with his body. Deciding that he needs to pull himself together, otherwise little Sona will die just like his parents, Lucas decisively rushes at the hero, hoping to win. But everything turned out differently. The enemy hits backhand with one slight movement of his paw, after which the boy flies 10 meters away and seems unable to even stand up. After hitting the tree hard, his transformation began to wear off and his real exhausted face was visible from under the mask. With the last of his strength, he told Sona to run, but it was too late. Before his eyes, the monster grabbed the girl and squeezed her with inhuman strength. The sound of crunching bones was clearly heard in the air. The next moment, Lucas saw that the monster's mouth opened wide and began to mercilessly devour the girl. The last thing the girl said was the word brother. It seems that this memory seriously angered the main character, his veins bulged, his arm became more powerful and became covered with tongues of lightning. After which, with all his might, Justice's successor concentrated all his strength and literally demolished all the massive columns in the room with one blow. Seeing this, Camila was incredibly surprised, her eyes opened wide. She did not expect such power, because he did not even turn into Justice, as if his powers were increasing with every second. Determined, Lucas confidently said that now he will train and in the future will do everything that depends on him. At this time, in one of the few remaining villains' bases, a guy was sitting and looking for something on the internet. He receives a call, putting the phone to his ear. From it he hears information that a couple of newcomers have joined the Union team and are moving on a mission to his area. Hearing this, the guy was happy and got up and headed to the door. In place of his footprints, some creepy, incomprehensible substance appeared in the form of dirt. Opening the door to the basement, he said that he and his guys were bored, they were hungry, and below they could see a bunch of evil eyes and the open mouths of strange creatures. On the other side of the street, our trio of heroes were going on a mission entrusted to them by the head of Team Union. With a mockery, seeing Lucas' uncertainty, Thomas wonders if they can cope. After all, this is not an easy task, after which, to reassure him, he adds that Justice's power is with them and there is nothing to worry about. Moreover, thanks to Camilla, they didn't even assign a hero mentor to them, and this actually says a lot. Then Lucas was indignant that the group should consist of 4 people, but there were only 3 of them. At that moment someone's hand touched his shoulder. With joy and good spirits, the charming blonde girl greets everyone and says that she was sent with them. Frightened by the sudden appearance, the main character jumps up and says the name Evie in surprise. She responds by saying that they are the same age and why not make friends. Then Camila runs into Thomas in a rage and is indignant that he brought a streamer. What was he even thinking about? Then the guy answered, he said that popularity is important in the Union team, it's convenient to have someone like Evie, she can speak on behalf of their group, especially considering the fact that they are forced to hide their identities. Surprised by what she heard, Evie asks with interest why they need to hide their identities. Lucas, not understanding what was happening, thought how he could talk about it so openly, they would be exposed. Showing her naivety, the fair-haired cutie says with admiration that they really also have a streamer in their lineup and she, too, at first felt awkward in public. Everyone seemed to be reassured by this ridiculous assumption and Thomas said that the patrol area was quite large and they should split up into pairs. Lucas immediately suggested that he be together with Camila, but Thomas, as the team captain, refused and ordered him to team up with Evie. Hearing this the guy's jaw dropped. Then Thomas took the main character aside and said that he had forgotten about what the professor said, he had never felt the manifestation before, the difference in abilities before and after was incomparable, Evie would help him with this. Looking at the carefree girl, Lucas thought about how and what he should learn from her, because she is so carefree and hardly has much strength. In addition, Thomas added, if they still had suspicions and mistrust of him, then Camila would be able to personally observe him. Butting into the conversation, Justice's student agrees and says that this is a good idea, that's what they will do. After which she and the bone guy headed forward, wished him good luck and ordered that if something happened to immediately contact them. There was an awkward pause between the guy and the girl, as if they didn't understand what to do and in which direction to move. Then Evie moved in the opposite direction, Lucas reluctantly moved after her, muttering dissatisfiedly under his breath that he was lucky to be walking around with a popular girl, noticing that she looked cuter than on the streams. Suddenly thinking that he doesn't even know what abilities this cutie has, Evie appears before his eyes and wonders what Thomas's words about watching him meant. This was said too straightforwardly. In response, Lucas replies that the guy just recently became a member of their group and that monitoring his progress was implied. The girl believed in this without a second thought. Apparently she was very naive and, as if she had read the thoughts of the main character, began to talk about her abilities. She can eat as much food as she wants and after that acquires incredible strength. Stunned by this ability, Lucas thinks that this is some kind of absurd nonsense and he doesn't believe it at all. The cutie also took out a chocolate bar and, while eating it, added that she wanted to become a hero in order to eat a lot for free and become more popular. Hearing this, Lucas had questions in his head. Thomas said that she would train him, probably this bastard was just mocking him. Then Evie started saying some really weird things about how Lucas should just try to think about what he wants to do and it doesn't have to be something big. Not understanding the essence of the question, the guy simply remained silent and thought that there must be some reason why this naive and sweet girl uses her abilities better than him. The next moment, peeking around the corner, Evie motioned with her hand for him to slowly come up and look at it. Before their eyes stood a huge man who seemed to consist entirely of muscles of an incomprehensible kind. He was wearing practically no clothes, only tattered shorts. Realizing that this was most likely their goal, he had not noticed them yet and they first needed to sneak up quietly. His thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the crunch of candy bars and slurping. Turning around, the main character saw that a sweet and little girl, with a huge appetite, attacked the food and seemed to swallow it without chewing. Angry, he wondered what was going on here and whether this strange streamer had enough gray matter in her brain. Approaching, Lucas grabbed her hands and ordered her to stop eating now, especially since the enemy was very close. Evie, not understanding anything, asked why he was angry. The guy's raised tone was heard by this creature, which turned out to be not a human at all, but some kind of monster, after which it rushed at the couple. The girl, seeing the enemy behind her, shouted loudly that after eating she could kick ass and her body began to be covered with some kind of energy. After which she broke the monster's head with one strong and biting kick. Now she doesn't seem like a nice girl at all. From such a lightning strike, the villain flew into the wall with incredible speed, breaking it. Then the glory that the girl said 10 minutes ago appeared in Lucas's head, that Evie could eat as much as she wanted and become stronger from it. So she really has such an ability, she burns calories, acquiring superpowers. The glow around her body appears precisely because of this. But it is unclear how the monster restored its body and rushed to attack. A strong blow lands right on the body of the seemingly fragile girl. Fearing that she might die, Lucas shouts her name and rushes to help. But his worries turn out to be unfounded. Thanks to instincts and a full stomach, the girl manages to put a block and, after taking a strong blow, does not even move. Calculating how many calories she spent, she realizes that she still has strength and concentrates a huge clot of energy in her left hand, after which she quickly hits the monster. Feeling incredible pain after an accurate hit in the chest, it is unclear how he even survived. Unable to win, the villain decides to run away. Rejoicing at the enemy's retreat, Evie says that she will follow him so as not to give him a chance to survive, and let Lucas contact the rest of the group and inform them about this. Left alone, taking his phone out of his pocket, the main character, shocked by what he saw, realizes that something incredible has happened before his eyes. Suddenly, some clod of dirt snatches the phone from his hands. Seeing this, the guy tries to grab it, but does not come out. Behind him, some strange guy, whom we saw earlier in the office, seems to materialize out of this mud and asks if the main character is really planning to contact his friends, but he won't succeed. Seeing this picture in front of him, thinking that no one warned that there would be someone else here, Lucas understands that this strange guy is thinking differently from the previous monster. But the main goal now is to contact the team and he rushes to take the phone, but his blow passes through the enemy's body, as if he had hit a mud ball. Lucas doesn't understand what the hell is going on here. All that's left of that attacker are puddles of dirt around. Taking advantage of the protagonist's loss of vigilance, the mud villain stabs his body with a knife. Quickly flowing like a clod of dirt, he appears in front of the guy and with a terrifying smile, as if a crazy person says that he won't be able to take the phone. Angry after these words, Lucas delivers a quick blow to the enemy's head. This time there was a feeling of a blow, but it was somehow strange. It seems that the enemy did not even feel him, but only stood and wondered where that beauty had gone, so he was not at all interested. Unable to bear the fact that he seemed to be ignored, Lucas began to ask about what the enemy had to do with the monster that had appeared here earlier. In response, he only said that who knows, now he is interested in something else. Whether that sweet girl is helping him with manifestation. Not everyone is able to withstand their manifestation. The villain takes advantage of this, turning them into his puppets. The terrifying expression on this psycho's face is terrifying. Apparently he is determined to make a new doll out of the main character. Covered in lightning with anger, Lucas says that if they became such monsters because of this guy, then he will answer for everything he has done. Dirt appeared on the enemy's body and he said with confidence that then let him try. after which both rushed at each other. The powerful blow of Justice's successor once again fell on a clod of mud. The enemy seems to be able to transform any part of his body into mud without receiving damage at all. But this time it was as if this incomprehensible mixture began to bind his hand, a little more and he would not even be able to move it. The next second, the opponent collected a bunch of dirt in his mouth and, like a machine gun, began to shoot it at Lucas. As soon as he dodged, the guy felt a sharp pain in his hand. The dirt squeezed his hand like a vice. Trying to remove it, nothing happened. Seeing these attempts, the psycho said that there was no way to remove his dirt. As soon as it stuck, it became stronger than medical plaster. Although it may not be that strong, who the hell cares? His throat became huge and ugly, after which he fired another burst of mud bullets. This time it was not possible to dodge a couple of projectiles. Now the other hand is shackled. It is becoming more and more difficult to move. It seems that soon he will collect all his dirt and lose. Then the main character decides that in order to win he needs to shorten the distance as soon as possible and go into close combat, after which he rushes at the enemy. Smiling, the enemy says that this is a good idea, but he will not be able to win, since he has already collected a lot of dirt and his movements have become slow. As if not hearing the provocations, Lucas concentrates all his strength in his hand. It suddenly frees itself from the shackles of dirt, and one can feel the incredible energy emanating from the guy. The enemy seems to have been caught by surprise, his eyes looking in surprise at the approaching fist. Really hit it, thought the main character, but the hand again flies through the body of the strange enemy. There is still a smile on the terrifying face. He even stuck out his tongue and said that it hurt, but that was not enough. Lucas's hand seemed to be stuck in a hardened wall. He couldn't free it. It was a special trap of the enemy. After which he shouted that he was not so frail and began to beat the main character with many quick blows. Having almost lost consciousness, Lucas felt a sudden surge of strength and, in a rage, launched a powerful blow towards the enemy, almost putting an end to the confrontation. Suddenly, a huge titan consisting of a pile of muscles appeared in front of the mud psycho. Its ferocious mouth let out a deafening scream and rushed forward headlong. The guy was distracted and received a powerful blow, which made him fly several tens of meters. A timely block saved his life. Looking forward, he thought that this monster had also been a human before. How vilely this crazy person was acting. Without showing weakness, with a smile, the villain realized that the guy was strong and the last blow almost killed him. The pain inside seemed to be tearing him apart. Having collected himself, the psycho said that the fight was kind of boring. There were a huge number of similar ones in his memory, and Lucas would be next. Angered by these words, the main character realized that this monster had killed many people, deprived them of their minds and made them his army. At that moment, another turquoise-colored creature appeared behind the psycho. It looked much uglier than the previous ones, probably because of the time spent in this guise. But this is not the end. Looking back, there were two more of the same converted monsters standing there. Then the villain said, slowly moving away from Lucas, that he was tired of messing around here and he would go to that beauty. It would be more fun with her, and now his charges would deal with him. As if having heard an order, the collars on the monsters began to tear. It seemed that they were holding back their real monstrous power, since the enemies seemed to be transformed and became more powerful. At the same moment, an incredibly powerful attack hits Lucas. He miraculously manages to jump away, and the monstrous force of the blow creates a crater in the asphalt. Being completely at a loss, because there are four huge big men against him, the main character is looking for ways to emerge victorious from such a difficult situation. Two monsters are flying at him at once. It seems a little more and they will simply crush the hero. Dodging this attack, he receives a hard blow to the back. The blow seems to pierce him through and Lucas falls to the ground. Subsequently, now all four attackers literally beat him, hitting every centimeter of his body. It seems that all his insides will soon begin to bleed. But despite this, incredible power seems to awaken in Justice's successor. Complete indifference is read in his eyes. The feeling of pain has left him. Charging one incredible attack after another, the fists absorb more and more energy, imbuing the wielder with monstrous strength. Having surrounded the main character, the villains try to attack at once and take him by surprise, but he fights off all attacks and even strikes back. The next moment, two big guys with their joint efforts throw Lucas several meters back. But it seems this only angers him even more, and despite his almost depleted energy reserves, electric spark discharges cover the hero's body. With incredible speed, he jumps on one of the opponents and slams him into the ground, not even giving him a chance to take defensive action. It seems the monsters are starting to feel tired. Loud wheezing comes from their mouths. Gathering in a group, they are preparing for the next attack. Suddenly one of them releases its tongue, which easily breaks through the wall behind the main character. Not expecting that they are capable of such a thing, Justice's successor fortunately manages to deflect the body, almost falling. Following him, the turquoise titanium quickly jumps forward with its legs, waving its muscular arms. It hits the hero. But Lucas manages to block the blow, but even so it causes significant damage, which slams him into the wall, his strength almost running out. Breathing heavily from a grueling fight, he does not understand how to rally and defeat 4 crazed opponents at once. Before that, he tried to restrain his strength, because he understood that inside these monsters there were ordinary people. At this time, Cutie Evie caught up and defeated the very first monster. His lifeless body lies on the asphalt, showing no signs of life. Satisfied with herself and noticeably hungry, the girl stretches her muscles, thinking how nice it would be to film all this and show it to her viewers. Standing over her stricken opponent, she notices someone's silhouette in the distance, which is rapidly approaching. It is unclear who it is. The same psycho who set his horde of monsters on Lucas suddenly clearly appears in front of her. He praises Evie, saying that she did a good job. Asking how she dealt with such a thug alone, he adds that he is also a new hero, ingratiating himself with her. Continuing to praise his interlocutor, the villain says that the cutie did all the dirty work for him and in fact he was tracking down this monster. Remembering Lucas, the girl asks if he has seen a guy with dark hair, who should have reunited with the rest of the group long ago and been here. Looking from under his brows at his stricken puppet, the psycho replies that he saw some guy shouting that he had to say something to his team and disappearing from sight. Examining the cutie, he doesn't understand at all how she managed to defeat one of his strongest charges, thinking that he overestimated him. Then the girl suspiciously asks what team this unfamiliar person belongs to. Judging by the clothes, this is not Guardian or Superhumans. Then, with a wide smile, trying to inspire confidence, the strange guy answers that he is new to the Union team. Having interrupted his speech, Evie says that this is not true, since she has a very good memory for faces and she did not see him at the general gathering of all newcomers, at which time the psycho appears behind her and tries to attack. Thanks to her incredible instincts, the cutie quickly turns and literally splits the stranger's hand with a lightning-fast strike. Not at all expecting such a turn of events, having even forgotten what he wanted to do, he bulges his eyes, and a huge hole appears in the place of his hand. Evie calmly says, looking at the unfamiliar guy, that touching girls without permission is a bad thing, even for the most avid fan. His hand flew off 2 miles away from a strong blow, slammed into the wall and slowly flowed down. Saying that this guy is somehow suspicious, she just wanted to digest the bars and relax. The girl is covered in a multicolored glow. Returning to the main character, who at this time, without slowing down at all, repeatedly knocks out enemies, but they quickly recover and continue to attack. One of them is in a wild rage, from the injuries he received. Steam is escaping from his eyes and mouth. He seems to be serious. Suddenly, the largest of the converts grabs Lucas by both hands at once, with such force that he is unable to even move his fingers. Seeing that despite all the efforts, the people inside these monsters still do not awaken, the main character decides that it is not people who are fighting him now, and a smile appears on his face. It's as if a bolt of lightning falls on the guy and he is completely covered with thick luminous energy, which only when it appears throws the attackers back a couple of meters. With one hand, Lucas, fighting at full power, literally flattens the arm of one of his opponents, grabs him and lifts him above him. In pain, even such a seemingly insensitive monster screams, unable to resist such a huge inhuman force. With one sharp throw, the main character sends the monster flying with all his might, which on the way bumps into another attacker and they both fly into the wall. It seems their battle is over. Memories suddenly flash through Lucas's head, in which he asked Camila if it was possible to bring the person who had turned back to his senses. To which Thomas confidently replied that now they are just monsters and not a single case is known for certain when the maddened could become human again, they should be killed without hesitation. Having accepted all these words, standing surrounded by the 2 remaining monsters, the main character says that he is very sorry that they were turned into dolls and he will finish with them as quickly as possible. At this time, Evie, before attacking, asks the suspicious stranger if he really saw her roommate and if everything is okay with him. Answering this, the psycho says that he doesn't know, maybe the monsters are already digesting him. According to him, the cutie in front of him is not so weak, her abilities are simply amazing and she should agree to cooperate. Angry upon hearing these words, the girl replies, "Ban, this is definitely a ban, it's a pity that such a function doesn't exist in real life, she wouldn't have to listen to all this nonsense." Disappointed, the villain turns into a mud monster and flies into the air and says that he will enjoy tormenting her even more. Without hesitation, the heroine delivers a series of blows, but it seems she misses, as the dirt simply scatters to the sides from her attacks. Circling around at breakneck speed, the enemy creature envelopes the girl, trying to immobilize her. Then Evie, concentrating all her strength in her legs, crouches for a moment and prepares to jump to get out of this mud trap, after which he jumps so high that he seems to be higher than the 5-story buildings around him. Seeing that the opponent is trying to increase the fighting distance, the villain begins to attack her with his mud projectiles fired from his mouth. In fact, the girl avoided falling into the trap and, moreover, in the air began to replenish her strength by eating candy bars hidden for a special occasion. Having quickly finished eating, a huge ball of charming and at the same time destructive energy is formed above the girl's head. She unleashes this entire huge cloud of incredible power on the enemy, seemingly without giving him a chance to dodge. Having miraculously survived, the mud stranger evaluates his opponent's attack and thinks that after such a release of energy, the girl should quickly run out of steam. But his conclusions are hasty. While simultaneously absorbing the bars and releasing balls of energy one by one, she literally exhausts the villain. Seeing that Evie is constantly eating and eating, this drives him crazy and he shouts for her to finish eating faster. After this, he raises a huge wall of dirt and brings it down on the heroine, hoping to capture her. Evie makes a hole in the wall with a blow of her hand and breaks out, realizing that a little longer and she will not be able to hold back all these endless streams. Not noticing the whole situation while defending herself, the girl finds herself in a puddle of mud, which envelopes her legs and completely immobilizes her. Noticing this, the villain uses his manifestation, which he calls a mud storm. With the help of his special ability, he completely pulls in from all sides and envelopes Evie's body. In this state it is even difficult for her to breathe. Having returned to his usual appearance, the psycho comes up and says that the girl looks cute even in this slop, so cute that he wanted to take her home. As soon as he began to stretch his vile hand towards the heroine, Lucas suddenly appears and with a slashing blow of enormous force almost disables the villain. Angrily shouting that he should not dare touch his comrades, such a nonentity like him is not worthy to even stand next to them. Seeing his previous opponent, the psycho said that he did not think of meeting again and why did he come close if he had already lost to him. In response to this, the guy calmly said that while he was running here, he was considering a bunch of options on how to make a stake out of him. Meanwhile, at the Hero Training Center, Helen couldn't get Lucas out of her head. He said that he had infiltrated Union, but there was no news after that. Seeing a cleaning robot near the entrance to the main training hall of the deceased Justice, the girl asked what happened. In response, she heard that she would not be able to train here today, since it seemed that Mr. Justice had used her a little earlier. Everything inside was destroyed. Entering the training room, the girl was surprised and angry at the same time, since she could only guess what Lucas was doing here. Meanwhile, on the streets of Tokyo, in response to Lucas's insolence, the strange guy replies that when someone gives him good advice, he should be thanked and taken seriously and there is no point in fighting him. But as they say, if you don't try, you won't know. With this attitude, the main character gathers his strength and prepares for the attack. Just after laughing, the psycho again begins to take lumps of dirt into his throat and release them at him. Lucas is familiar with this attack. He is not at all surprised. He harmoniously digs his fingers into the asphalt, pulls it out and throws it in front of him, thereby protecting himself from projectiles. The villain says, praising him, that a good technique is better than just running away, as he did earlier, but how can he protect himself from this? A huge mud dragon appears in front of Justice's successor, quickly rushing towards him. It seems that it is so huge that it can fill the entire street. With incredible speed, the villain seems to immediately deliver one blow after another from all sides, thereby covering the main character's body with layers of dirt until he is completely immobilized. With a nasty smile, the stranger mocks him by saying that he wanted to make a steak out of him, but in the end he stands in the mud and cannot even move. However, our hero is very determined and, as if throwing off the fluff, with a stream of energy breaks all the shackles from the mud. With every second he becomes stronger. Not understanding what is happening, the attacker watches this picture and cannot believe that in just half an hour this guy has become many times stronger. Saying that now his opponent will be in a lot of pain, Lucas kneads his shoulder, which is a little stiff from the mud hanging over it, but now he feels great. The next moment, with monstrous force and speed, he strikes the enemy, breaking all the walls around from the sound wave. The villain didn't even have time to react. He flies away and hits the asphalt a couple of times. Once again, out of despair, he tries to fire mud projectiles from a distance. Then Lucas says that he didn't understand that this is useless and repels the entire attack with one movement of his hand. From the acquired speed, the dirt does not even have time to stick to the body. Seeing that the dirt does not stick, but immediately crumbles, as if touching a flame, the villain makes no more attempts and, shocked, reassures himself that such blows will definitely not affect him. His guesses are absolutely wrong. The next blow of the main character literally tears the criminal into small pieces. But oddly enough, the remaining part of the body, even after this, begins to regenerate and reassemble the bandit's body piece by piece. Feeling that he has found the key to victory, Lucas smiles and wonders if the villain is going to forever restore his pathetic, disfigured body. Realizing that a lot of dirt has gone to waste, the psycho thinks that if he continues like this, his dirt will completely dry up. He needs to finish as soon as possible and uses his manifestation called a mud storm. Our hero finds himself inside a huge mud tornado. Then, gathering all his strength, Lucas decides to just hit underneath him and dispel all this dirt with a shock wave. It was a great idea. At the sight of the monstrous impact, a huge crater appears, as if a rocket had just landed there. Having accepted defeat, the villain thinks that perhaps this hero is new. He scattered the manifestation with the pressure of the wind and needs to get out as soon as possible. But it seems that this outcome of events does not suit Justice's successor, because he intends to end the criminal here and now. This turns out to be difficult to do. The enemy's regeneration is very strong. Even 10 days will not be enough for him to completely destroy all the dirt. Then realizing that the power that he receives with the transformation into Justice until now he could not use 100%, since he still cannot control such a volume of power, but he is able to take it for an instant. One martial artist said that it is not necessary to bring the body to exhaustion all the time. It is much more important to concentrate at the moment when it is really necessary. Having inhaled a full chest of air and focusing on internal energy, the main character moves his hand back a little, preparing for the final blow. This is somewhat reminiscent of a karate move. Seeing that something wrong is happening and a lot of confidence has appeared in the young guy who stands in front of him, the villain realizes that the end has come for him. With amazing and lightning-fast power, to everyone's surprise, Lucas uses his manifestation, which he calls Magnum, although this blow is even faster than a gunshot. The villain is shattered into small pieces. He will no longer be able to recover. The fight is finally over. Meanwhile, the other part of the group patrolled the area, inspecting the surroundings, but so far they still could not find a single villain. Noticing the tension and close observation of Thomas's actions, he asks if Camila is too vigilant and mistrustful of him. The girl replies that now she has no good reason to trust him and asks why he infiltrated the Union team if his goal is to kill villains, which is such a necessity. Saying that the interlocutor is right, Thomas claims that they have not yet achieved such a strong relationship for him to tell all his plans for the future. Suddenly Camilla says to stop and points to a nearby building, showing that only there in the entire area there is a light on, and this is suspicious. Not understanding how this girl noticed this small, barely noticeable light, the guy says that he can check, but there are strong chains hanging on the door. This turns out to be no problem. Turning his hand into a bone hammer, Thomas tears them apart, seemingly without even exerting minimal effort. Entering the room, they saw that there was nothing suspicious there. Maybe someone just left and forgot to turn off the light. The guy, looking around the room, finds some strange switch and presses it, but the light does not turn off, which means there is another generator in the building. Camilla notes that there is a secret generator in the office, something is not clean here, after which she approaches the iron door and, with the pressure of her shadows, rips it off its hinges. Upon entering, fear and surprise appear on the faces of both characters at the same time. There were dozens of capsules with monsters there, probably this is the same laboratory of that mud psycho that Lucas dealt with. Every small instrument was scattered on all the tables. It seems that monstrous and illegal experiments on people were carried out in this room. Having found documents and records, Thomas reads that hundreds of biological experiments were actually carried out in this ominous place. Listening to him, Camilla notices that one of the computers is connected to the network and is working. Someone must have been here recently. There is a password on the desktop computer. It looks like they'll have to carry the bodies to the team's main building. But suddenly Thomas comes up and starts trying to hack the system and succeeds. Not understanding how he did it, the girl looks suspiciously, but the guy says that according to the data there were 53 subjects in total, most of them could not stand it and died. Each test subject was from a cast of incompetent people with untapped hero potential, and the scale of the experiments was much worse than he thought. A shadow ribbon suddenly appears in front of the guy and destroys the table. Camilla seems angry. She looks at Thomas with dissatisfaction and asks the question how he managed to crack the password so quickly. It seems he is not saying something. At this time, having dealt with the enemy, Lucas remembers the cutie Evie, who seems to be taking a mud bath. Everything seems to be fine with her. Seeing a walkie-talkie on the asphalt, which apparently remained from that mud guy, the hero picks it up and from there comes the question if everything is okay with Bruce. Realizing that that psycho with dirt was named Bruce and he has an accomplice, Lucas responds, turning into a criminal, that everything is fine and he dealt with the petty heroes. In response, information is heard that a group of 2 people went inside the secret laboratory and the person on the other side of the radio filled everything there with explosives. Realizing that the 2 people who came in are Camilla and Thomas, the main character tries to find out where this place is and gives himself away. Transforming back, Lucas realizes that his comrades are in danger and need to find them as soon as possible. Meanwhile, after Camilla's question, Thomas appears to attack her, turning his hand into a bone fist. But in fact, he quickly moves behind her and repels some strange attack, thereby saving the girl. It seems that there is someone else here besides them. The bones on Thomas's hand quickly broke as soon as they touched this toxic green liquid. At this time both heroes notice some strange man. The same liquid flows out of his hands. After it hits the wall, it immediately destroys all the walls, as if exploding them. Debris scatters throughout the room and almost covers Camilla, and Thomas pushes her away with his foot, saving her from death. But unfortunately he doesn't have time to jump away and is covered by a huge piece of the wall, from under which blood splashes. A stranger's face appears from the shadows and he calmly reasons that this is the same Camilla in front of him. He heard that she was sent on a mission by the Union team. The embittered girl shouts that since he heard about her, he came here in vain and attacks him with many shadows at once. But the enemy, kicking the ground, materializes his toxic green solution around himself and neutralizes the attack released by Camilla. After which she says that this is the last place the girl visited, since death awaits her.